Okay, I think we'll get cracking. We're going to be doing a little intro, so if anyone that's coming in can't hear us just yet, we'll be doing intro for a minute or so. So thanks for coming, everybody. With the need for action being more needed than ever, this session is going to be honest, pretty brutally honest at some points, about the do's and don'ts of award writing, specifically in the area of social and environmental sustainability, and what GGA looks for, or what the judges look for in an entry. We're welcoming to the panel today 14 years of combined global good experience in the form of Paula and Rick. So if I can ask you both to introduce yourself, start with Paula.
Hello, everyone. As Karen said, my name is Paula Owen, and I have been a judge with the Global Good Awards since its inception. So that's 8 years now? 9 years, okay. My background is in environmental sustainability, and I run two small companies. One is a sustainability and carbon emissions related agency. We help companies and organizations with their carbon footprints and action plans. And the other is an educational and behavioral change company, and we achieve this education and behavior change through the use of games. So within the Global Good Awards, my categories are usually related to my areas of interest. And from the point of view of my judging background, I've been a judge with Global Good Awards, as I've just said. I'm also a part of a 7-strong jury, international jury that awards the Junior Water Prize at the Stockholm World Water Week each year. I've been doing that for 6 years now. And I'm also a judge on the Plastic Free Awards that are run by Surface Against Sewage, which you might know of, and backed by the Iceland Foundation. I think that's about it. Enough for me.
Paula. Yep. Rick.
Thanks, Karen. And yeah, impressive resume from Paula. As with all the judges, I'm always kind of a little bit amazed by the background of everybody and the experience that they've got. So good afternoon to everyone on the webinar. My name is Rick Benfield. So I'm a freelance strategy consultant focused on sustainability and purpose. So through my work, I help my clients to drive positive environmental and social change. I've been a judge at the awards since 2017, so not quite as long as Paula. And indeed, I work with a wide network of associates, some of whom I met and was lucky enough to meet through the judging panels at the Global Good Awards. And there really is an incredible amount of experience on the panels. I'm really looking forward to the session. So I look forward to your questions. I hope you've got some ready with you already.
Great. Thanks, guys. So I've been very vocal in the past about how our judges can sniff out greenwashing and only reward at Global Good Awards for action, not aims and targets. And we're very clear about that. I'll be posing some questions and discussion points for the judges from things that I've seen come through in my inbox and the entry platform, and they'll answer those to those highlighting the do's and don'ts for each. Then at the end, I'm going to disclose our exciting plans for 2023. It's an awards first, and as far as I can find out, so please do stay tuned for, to the end. Do ask questions in the chat as we go along, as you think of them, and I'll pick them up at the relevant times. Don't like rushing Q&As at the end, so do carry on doing that throughout and I'll pick them up. Last year we did run a series of called Ask the Judges webinars, and we created from that a top tips from the judges document. I'm going to send the link to you all afterwards just to highlight that to you. It's on the website anyway. They're all really important, so but we won't go through them all, but we are going to highlight a few of them now, which will cover some of the key points. As I say, I'll send the link again later. So moving swiftly straight into the first thing is, Rick, answering questions. Why should people actually answer the questions? I know it sounds ridiculous, but
yeah. No, I mean, that's a good question to start with. Why answer the questions themselves? So you will see, and I think Global Good is really clear on this on the website, in terms of each category has specific criteria that we're then judging on, and what's outlined on the website and the pages under each category is what we then use to judge the to judge each entry. And when we're scoring the entries, it's under each of those criteria elements that we then give scores on the entry that you write. And each of those criteria elements have a weighting as well, which again is clearly outlined when you look on the website and look at the information for the category that you're going to enter. So it's absolutely crucial that you build your entry response around that criteria, and particularly put more effort into those sections that are awarded and weighted more heavily. So often the evidence section, for example, has quite a lot of weighting, but it's often quite light, and people skip that or just put the sort of narrative against that answer, which doesn't really provide any kind of evidence as to what you've actually achieved. So I think answering the questions when we're judging it against that criteria is crucial. Otherwise, it's almost impossible for us to give a high score, even if we can tell that you've done some good work. If you haven't answered the questions, we just can't give you a high score.
And we do actually, we're one of the only awards that actually show what those percentage scores are. A lot of awards don't actually give the percentages against the criteria on their application process. We do make it very clear what those percentages are, so you know what you need to answer to in more detail. Paula, talk to me about why companies should be filling in their application form jargon-free.
Jargon, yes, and acronyms. Whilst we as judges are particularly experienced in the categories that we have been chosen to judge, we very well might not be overly familiar with your particular sector. And what is quite kind of frustrating when we are reading through the entries is the use of sector-specific jargon or acronyms or kind of terms that are just thrown into your answers, and then we are left in sort of scrabbling around to really understand what is meant by that. So from my side, it has to be plain English. You have, everything you write, put it through a plain English kind of filter, or once you've finished your entry, get a critical friend who is not in your industry, who might know something about kind of sustainability in its wider sense, or the particular category you're entering. Get that critical friend to read your entry and give you some honest feedback on how easily understandable it is for them. That'll give you a good idea whether it'll be easily understandable for the judges that are looking through it. So yes, cut the jargon. It doesn't it doesn't make you look big and clever. It just frustrates us because we have to spend more time trying to work out what you mean.
And while we're with you, what's the problem with going on over the word count?
Well, the word count is there for a reason. One thing I didn't mention, I also work for the European Commission. I'm an expert evaluator on the Horizon 2020 funding scheme. And actually, if you go over the word count in that, we are instructed not to read a word over that word count. And so they allow people to give more information, but there's a cutoff point and it's coloured in a different colour on the screen. So we cannot go past. And that is something that I bring into my other judging as well. If people go over the word count and they've written an essay where we needed a simple kind of synopsis, then I tend not to read it. So I'll just keep a level playing field for all applicants. I will just read within the word count for each section.
Interesting. We do have a 10% sway for people to just complete, but just to give some, we had an entry this year that was 6,000 words long, and we have a 1,500. And the way we split our application form, we don't stop because there's like 5 questions, so it's very difficult to say you've got a 1,500 word count for all of the 5 questions combined. So it's very difficult to say, right, we're going to limit that to 250, 250, 250, because the ones that have got impact and showing evidence. We want to allow people the extra words. So you really do need to stick to it.
That was one of mine. I remember that one.
Yeah.
Distinctly.
Oh, yeah, I think I had that one as well. Just to add as well, I think as with any comms, messaging or report writing that you're doing, always think of the audience as well. In this case, the audience are the judges, are us, and we have a lot of applications to entries to read through. We each get assigned 2 or 3 categories initially to process, and it takes, at least 2 days to go through all of the entries. And so just think about the judges as well. That's your audience at this point. And so if they're reading that many entries, they are going to get fatigued as they go through them. So if you do go massively over the word count, we just might, either have Paula in terms of, being strict and just stop them to read, or the judge just might not get to the end because it's so long and they've got to move on. And they might miss really vital and important information that you want to add to your entry. So being concise is really important.
Yeah, we'll be coming on to that in a bit about where you should put your big, bold data. So we ask for supporting documents, Rick, but we often get lots of unnecessary attachments that judges will need to wade through. What's your advice?
Yeah, and I think you see this with some of the bigger companies who've obviously got PR agencies or marketing agencies that work with them. They have some really beautiful attachments that they add to the entries, which are nice to look at, but just make sure that they are kept to a minimum. And as Karen just pointed out, that the key information is already included in the main entry in the answer field, and that the attachments are there as supplementary information. Particularly, for example, to expand on particular technical evidence or points that are made. We often get claims around innovations and new technologies that have been developed, and so to include sort of evidence to back that up in your attachments is fine. But if you're including attachments that have the answers to the questions, as we were talking about before, it's going to be difficult because, again, judges have got a lot to get through. So if you've attached 15 documents to your entry, whilst it might look impressive, it's tough for a judge to then go through each of those word for word. So just look at it as supplementing your answers, but not answering the questions. Yeah,
cool. Thanks, Rick. Social media statistics often get used in impacts and outcomes, which I find very frustrating because I come from a comms background, just sort of, using sort of random sort of social media stats. Paula, why is that a problem?
It's a problem because most of the time your kind of reach and impressions and such stats mean diddly squat, really. We're all very aware that there are so many bots out there, or there's paid for likes and all the rest of it. So great to have some numbers in there, but make those numbers mean something. Make those numbers represent your actual impact, not kind of ethereal kind of social media
reach and impressions.
Influence. So it doesn't impress us anymore. We want impact.
Everyone has competitors, and it's important to recognize that and flag who they are. Why is that, Rick?
I think you've got to be clear and honest how you're competing and who you're competing against. I mean, all the judges have access to the internet. We all have a broad knowledge base in the world of sustainability as well. So if you're making statements about having completely new, innovative, groundbreaking programs or technologies or products or projects, or the way that you're running the organization, there's a fair chance, if that's not true, that one of the judges will either know about something that's already going on, or a quick Google might tell them that. So I think, don't forget, Facebook wasn't the first social network. Friends Were United, MySpace before that. Apple, the iPod was not the first MP3 player. The point is that it doesn't matter if you weren't the first to do something. You need to articulate why or how you're doing it better, or why the project or product or your business and how you're running it is better and good, to take the tagline of the awards themselves. So if it truly is new technology, then wonderful, then state that, and as I said, you can put supplementary evidence attachments onto the entry itself. But If it's not, don't claim it is, because we'll probably find out, and it's not necessarily greenwashing. But then if we think that you're not being wholly truthful in that sense, then we might start to question some of the other responses that you put in your entry as well.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. We've got a couple of questions, which I was just about to move on to. I'm interested in your comments on word count. It almost seemed it could be worth exceeding it if there is a chance it will be read. Now, I'm going to highlight one thing there, and that is we set these word counts for a reason, and that is to try to keep you focused on highlighting the biggest positives in your project. If you do go over 1,500 words, you're probably subconsciously going to be rambling a little. You shouldn't need, the company of the year has got bigger. It's a 2,500 because it covers an awful lot bigger reach areas. But the word count is there because we like for you to focus and be strict and concise about your answers. Would either of you like to add anything to that?
It really, when I'm judging, if people do go seriously over the word count, then that's a black mark against their name, and I will not kind of take into consideration what comes kind of after you've exceeded your word count. Just because I've been trained to do that with other work, so I bring that into my judging. So I wouldn't do it. I always try to stay within a word count. Try to get to maximum word, the word count, but don't go over. There should be no need.
No.
Yeah, I mean, as Karen said earlier, there's a slight tolerance, and as judges, you get a feel. Looking at so many entries, you'll know when one is particularly long. And that 6,000 word example that Karen gave earlier, I think I had that this year as well, and so I immediately flagged it. And there's no way I was going to read through all of that. So if the word count for a particular question is 100 words and you write 105. I'm going to read the last 5 words, but if you write 200, then perhaps not. So it's sort of all in proportion, really, as well.
Yeah. This is about the social media, what we said. What if your business practices are directly linked to social media? Still not good to include those numbers?
Include them, but we need more evidence in terms of your actual impact.
I think with social media, for me, one of the criteria in some of the categories is around awareness raising and how you spread the message or encouraged others to follow your example. And so engagement stats are more important than impressions, for example. So if someone's reposting or commenting on a particular, in this case, a social media post, then that shows real engagement as opposed to just views, because someone scrolling through something doesn't mean they've actually taken in what you said or been in any way inspired by it. But yeah, it's I guess if your whole business is focused on social media, then it's slightly different.
Yeah, right. Well, that's covered some of the topics that we talked about in the top tips. So now I'm going to go on to some of the experiences that I had when I was receiving emails from entrants, managing judges' feedback, that kind of thing over the last few years. So we provide masses of support for entrants from these webinars, the tips from the judges, the category descriptions, the criteria, everything that's on the website, and it's all backed up on emails for companies that register their interest to enter. And there's lots of guidance, but how important is it to follow that guidance? I mean, we probably touched on some of this already. Paula, do you want to start?
Well, if it's there, why not use it?
Well, yeah.
A lot of time over the years, because I've been involved in writing some of this, and kind of over the years, we've spent a lot of time trying to save your time and then consequently our time in judging your entries. So it's all there from experience. And as you know, we've been going for 9 years now. So there's a lot of experience there in terms of what we're looking for. So to use it, we want to read high quality, concise, clear, on point entries. That gives us joy, and that can be more easily achieved if you read and follow the guidelines we give you.
And that guidance has been developed with the judges' feedback over those 9 years. So do take notice of it and do take the time to read the documents that are available.
I think one of the, amazing points about the Global Good Awards and is the level of scrutiny that the entries go through. It's not a beauty parade. Some other awards is, sort of public vote, and it's all about, basically how many friends and family and followers you can get to vote for your particular entry to go through to win an award. But and sometimes the judging is questionable. Some of the other awards, I'm questioning any of the other awards, but I think the Global Good particularly is very, very good in terms of the level of scrutiny it goes through to. And if you win an award at the Global Good, you really are doing something quite special. And as Karen and Paula said, those guidance notes that we've written, that's from the experience of the judges, not just judging, but also the experience that they've had through through their working lives as well. And learning from your mistakes is always, the best way to learn. But why not learn through others' mistakes as well, which is what that guidance helps to set out. I think writing award entries is a real skill and an art in itself. So if you're going to put an entry in, just invest that little bit of extra time and get the help that you can. Even the link that Karen put in, I think for this event today, like the Q&A that she mentioned at the start of the session, there's some great information in that document in and of itself. So just take a little bit of time just to go through that and make sure the hard work that you're doing with your projects, within your business as a whole, gets the reward and recognition that it deserves. Basically, give yourself the best chance, I would say, and so use those materials if you can.
Yeah, great. We see some entries come through clearly in the wrong category. It happens every year. There's half a dozen, and often they probably haven't even approached me prior to entry. Sometimes I can push people into a certain category if they come to me for advice, and often I know it happened this year. Paula, I emailed you with a project that wanted to enter behaviour change, and it clearly wasn't behaviour change. We pushed them into entering community partnership, and they got one of the top prizes because they asked for the right advice, and we said, yep, this is definitely a community partnership project. They did a really good job with their entry, and they got somewhere with it, which is really good. So what must they do, Paula? Make it I know it's really obvious, but
yeah, it is, and I think it's because of the categories I tend to judge, which are the kind of often the behaviour change category. I see a lot of this, and I think some of it's down to particular categories not being quite well understood by the entrants, and behaviour change seems to be a particular problem because we see a number of entries that are not behaviour change. So my advice is really get into the skin of the category and the criteria for that category to make sure that you and your project or initiative actually belongs in that category. A lot of the behavioural change entries we've thought would do better in, maybe as Karen's just given you that example, but also it's more educational than behaviour change. So it would go really well into a educational category and
campaign.
Potentially, or campaign. But with behavioural change, we really do look for evidence of behavioural change, and that's what entries are missing. So really get into the skin of the category you think is yours to enter, and then hopefully we'll see less miscategorized projects.
There is a 100-word description at the top of our application form, which is used on the website to promote if you become a finalist. And I can see all the stages when somebody enters from their draft application, and often I see that they leave it to the last minute. So they put everything else in and they leave that 100-word description to the last minute. Why, Rick, is that a missed opportunity?
So, I mean, again, the old adage that first impressions count, right? So it's the first thing that the judge reads about your company or about the project that you've been running or the campaign that you've been running. So, you want to get the judge hooked at that stage. I know I said it before, but as judges, we do read through a lot of applications. And I know you can say, well, that sounds like then you might be unfair if you're the 20th one you've read that day, but we're only human beings as well at the same time. So just again, keep that in mind, that you want to make sure you're presenting this to an audience of judges who are humans, who have read many other applications that day or in previous years. So try and make yours stand out and impress them, impress the judges, and perhaps bring in some key stats or evidence that you've got at that stage in that first statement. And so the judge sort of reads that and goes, well, wow, this sounds really good. This sounds interesting. If it's quite a dry sort of introduction, or even if it's confusing and you don't quite understand what the entry is about until you start digging into it, I often find myself Googling the company. I read that 100-word and I say, well, I don't even know what this company does, or I don't know what this project's about. I Google it first and I say, okay, oh, right, there, okay. And then I go back and then I read it. But if you, and that's just, again, it's extra, not say extra effort, but it's just, you want to hook the judge in, basically, with that first statement. And, what can you include? I think it's always good. It's always great if you can get someone else to proofread. If you can't get them to proofread the whole entry, just get them to proofread that first statement. It could be someone not even associated with your business, a peer in another company or a friend or family member, just to read that and say, does that sound like it summarizes what we do? Does that sound like it? You get that, what we're trying to achieve here. Because again, for the judge coming in, as Paula mentioned earlier, we're not going to be an expert in your particular industry or sector, depending on what you're doing and where the judge is coming from. So you want to grab us and sort of shake us at that point, and be excited about reading the rest of the entry.
Great.
If I can add to that,
yep.
Karen, my top tip here is think about that 100-word summary as the blurb that you'd read on the back of a book that you picked up in a bookshop.
Yeah,
I know it's I know personal experience is the hardest thing to do, and you should do it last because you need to see the entry in its entirety before you write that blurb. But that blurb is what people see first, and it's what will make somebody in a bookshop buy that book because you've intrigued them, you've hooked them in. Think of it in that way with your entry. Yeah. Your summary is your back cover blurb for a novel.
Yeah, I remember when so Martin Wright wrote the script for our ceremony, and I gave him all of those 100-word descriptions of all of the winners, and he came back and said some of them I don't even understand what they do, and he had to go off to their websites and find what they actually do and what their key impact was, so he could share some really top key parts of what their project was about within the ceremony. So if you're going to have to go off, send a judge off and do that with 100 words, it's not a good start to your application. So really do focus on that. And as Paula said, do it at the end. Paula, this is one of your favourites, I think. We get entries from companies that have outlined their roadmap to net zero, but have only just started it with no measurable impact or very little, as well as projects and initiatives that are in their beta stages. What would you say to those in that situation?
Yeah, my heart sinks when I read an entry that's titled "Our Roadmap to Net Zero in 20." Add your number.
We're not dissing roadmaps, by the way, because they're great, because they are a plan for the future. But we obviously.
But we are not giving prizes for. Yeah, we're not giving prizes for plans and roadmaps and things that are going to happen in the future. It's great to have a clear plan to how you're going to get to net zero or carbon neutrality or whatever you want to call it. But if you are applying for an award, you have to show us your achievements, your action. It's like, for example, in Weight Watchers, if somebody comes along and says, I've got a roadmap and I'm going to lose 3 stone by 2025, give me a prize because that's so ambitious. Well, Weight Watchers isn't going to give them the prize until they've actually achieved that. So,
or they're well on their way to achieving.
Or they're well on their way.
Yeah,
they're halfway
10-year roadmap. Yeah.
Yes. So we need to see that evidence that the roadmap is actually workable, drivable, cyclable, and the the goal is insight and achievevable. So yes.
Cool.
We've had a lot of those in recent years, the plans and the roadmaps. So now we really want to see them being implemented and results.
Yeah, and because action is so vital to us rewarding organisations, that in the criteria scores, it's up to 40% of the scores. So when you're writing your entry, make sure you look at, again, we've said this already, but make sure you look at the criteria for that category and make sure that you answer and, you know, give enough that's going to warrant those 40% of the scores. So yeah. Rick, anything to add?
No, just I'm glad Paula didn't completely diss roadmaps, because I do help a lot of clients write
Yes,
zero roadmaps. But,
roadmaps are essential, but you need to be able to have travel down said road a fair distance before you win a Global Good Award.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the feedback comments given, feedback, I can't even read my own writing now. Feedback comments given the most from judges to applicants not shortlisted is applications lack evidence. Why do you think that is? And what can they do to prepare for that now, months before entering? Rick?
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons is that evidence gathering is really hard, particularly if it's done retrospectively. So I think so many organisations set targets or roadmaps or set a direction that they're going to go in, and then fantastic, they make it there, or they're on the way to making it there, but they haven't built in into their procedures, into their processes, into the way that they run their operations or run the business or produce the product, to gather evidence or stats along the way. So they then try and backtrack and do it retrospectively, and it's really, really difficult to do that. As well as impact reporting in general, or demonstrating impact, choosing the right measures and metrics to do that is not easy either. So even just identifying what you're going to measure and then making sure you do measure it. So I think that's one of the reasons why, a lot of organizations just don't seem to have that information available at their fingertips. So what can you do? I mean, it's really important that you try to build this into how you run as a business, or how you're running your campaigns, or how you're running and producing your products, so that you can gather those key data points along the way. And by data, I mean both quantitative and qualitative, because stories and case studies and evidence is as important as just raw figures sometimes. Because it's the kind of adage that you can't manage what you can't measure, it goes for impact too. So just never plan a strategy or roadmap or a target without also thinking how you're going to measure yourself against that plan, strategy, roadmap, and try and build that into business as usual and how you operate. Because without it, when you come to write anything like an award entry, and that criteria that we ask for, but equally, if you're trying to see how far along you are on your roadmap, you just won't be able to, you won't know because if you're not gathering the information and data as you go along.
Exactly. Good. So Paula, what are the benefits to being open in the application about your failings, challenges, and how you've overcome them?
Well, basically, if you come across as being too perfect, then we're going to kind of not quite believe it. I'm a firm believer in we learn more from our mistakes and failings than we do from our successes. And as Rick said earlier about, Facebook wasn't the first sort of social networking site, Google wasn't the first search engine, etc., etc. They've all innovations, industries, and products have gone through a huge amount of test, destruction, fail, start again, learn from before. So I love to see kind of honest, raw and honest kind of descriptions of where things didn't go quite to plan, but what the learnings were from those earlier failures and how they have increased the chance of success in the next round. So it tells a better story. We are likely to believe it more and not think, oh, this is too good to be true. How much of this is kind of greenwash? So don't be afraid of kind of talking about this, the journey on your roadmap, warts and all, because it just makes a success even more impressive if you've gone through kind of a number of challenges and failures in kind of in the process. So
And an entry can be honest in our application forms, because the judges all sign NDAs as they enter the platform. So yeah, even corporate organisations can be open and honest without worrying about secrets being given away. So there's no worry about that. Rick, would you like to add anything?
No, I just reiterate, I think, yeah, no company is perfect, no product or project or campaign is perfect either. So I think, demonstrating real progress, but also highlighting where progress still needs to be made, demonstrates honesty. And as Paula said, I think as a judge, you then tend to believe the good stuff more if you also have read a little bit about the challenge along the way. If it's all good, then you start to question, not quite sure. This does sound too good to be true. So it just makes elevates the rest of the entry, I think, when you see some of the challenges that organizations go through.
We regularly get sentences starting with, we're committed to, we're striving towards, our project is really innovative and groundbreaking. What do you expect to read after those bold statements, Paula?
And this is why we are confident in these bold statements, and then a bullet list of things that they have achieved that allows them to say something like that.
Yeah, so basically backing up why they're innovative, etc. Right, we're going to go for a quick couple of questions now. What do we got? What would the judges consider worthy and good evidence to attach to an impact claim?
Well, that depends on what the entry is all about. So I'll just go with what I know. So kind of on a behavioural change entry, we really need some good quantitative evidence of the behaviour that has been changed. So, and the more specific, the better, because, and this is where in this category, entries really do kind of, fail, that they don't specify the behaviour that they are wanting to change in enough detail to be able to then do some qual and quant kind of analysis to prove or not that their intervention has worked. So so from my point of view, it is specify with as much kind of detail as possible what you are trying to achieve, and then the qual and quant kind of evaluations should be included to back up the claims.
Yeah, I think on the sort of environmental side, you've obviously got some key metrics that are used around emissions, around weight kilograms of waste, around water use, energy use, etc. So there's some sort of almost standard metrics on the environmental side that you might be looking at. On the people side, you often see claims of, we've improved the lives of 1.2 million people or 100,000 people, and without anything beyond that in terms of how have you improved those lives? Have you just spoken to 1.2 million and 1.2 million people seen your YouTube video? It doesn't really mean that you've changed anyone's life. So when you've got statements like that, I'm always a bit skeptical unless it's then backed up by both potentially quant and qualitative evidence. So on the qualitative side, you can have 2 or 3 case studies or clips of interviews or quotes from beneficiaries of whatever project it might have been, that where you've improved their life through your product or through a campaign or through a project or community engagement, whatever it is. Just outlining how, why that person's life has changed because of the intervention that you've put in place, and then surveys with people, again demonstrating improvements in their well-being or happiness or financial situation or whatever it might be. So that kind of survey evidence backed by sort of quotes or case studies is useful on the people side. And then on the environmental side, I think there's a reasonable amount of standard metrics out there now. But again, we see claims of companies saying, we've reduced our emissions, or we've reduced our emissions to 0, without any actual, or we've reduced the amount of water we've used, but without even numbers or metrics attached to that. And so what does that mean? You might have reduced it by 0.1% of what you were using last year, which might sound nothing, but if it's a huge global corporate manufacturing supply chain, 0.1% might be a massive amount of water that you've reduced. So again, just putting it in context as well as the actual metrics is useful when we're judging some of these things.
Great, Thanks. I can probably answer this next one. When judging, do you look back at previous entries? The only time we really do that is if a company has entered the same category with the same project twice. If they've won one of the awards, we ensure that they have made significant improvements in their campaign or their project or activities to be able to win again. So I do give the previous application to the judges to take that into consideration as well. I hope that answers that.
And the other thing, Karen, is where we have the innovation category.
Oh, that's been replaced with a real innovation category now. It's not just a tick box.
Yes, and also if somebody's claiming innovation, then we, because we have the history of judging, think, hang on a second, didn't something very similar come up some years ago? Then we'd have to go back, because we have to, see if it truly is an innovation or not. So there's that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to skip the next one because we pretty much covered it. So with oh, excuse me, I'm just so with very little time left to stop the complete climate breakdown, what's in an application to make it a potential gold winner? Paula.
Well, we were just talking about innovation, so we'd be looking for true innovation that is practically solving an existing kind of naughty problem that we haven't got suitable kind of solutions for at the moment. Original twists on an existing tech that revolutionizes what that could do in terms of solving the identified problem, and always the oh, this is great moment when I'm reading something and followed with a why on earth had nobody thought of this before? That's another kind of that gets us, and that kind of gives it the edge. So it's the kind of, oh, this is so obvious. Why hasn't anybody thought of it before? And it's brilliant, potentially scalable, applicable, accessible. So that kind of thing we're looking for in terms of our
knock your socks off, basically.
Yeah, knock your socks off, gold winners.
Yeah. Rick?
Yeah. No, yeah, I think the scalability point is really important there. And also for me, I'd really like to see where you can truly it can truly demonstrate that you're putting people, planet alongside profit. We're looking at business here, so business still needs to make money. The economic side is still, really, really important. But often, even with clients that I work with, sometimes I'll go into a client and the profit or the financials are still, front and center. It's still the most important thing in the company. And then it's often, well, yeah, you can achieve net zero if you want, but as long as we're still making this profit, you need to work out how you're going to achieve net zero whilst we're still making this amount of profit. And I like to see the conversation flipped around to say, well, we're going to achieve net zero. How are you going to still make profit while we're achieving net zero? It's sort of a flip round of that to truly show and demonstrate that people and planet are alongside as important as profit, because I think there's so many organizations that are still paying a little bit of lip service. It's moved beyond, forward a lot, I would argue, in the last 3 years, but there's still a fair amount of tick boxing going on and PR and, dare I say, greenwashing. So yeah, truly reading application that shows this company, this organization, they really do care. They are really trying to make a parity between those people and planet and profit. So yeah, that's what I look for as well.
And the other thing I was going to say was about making things open source. If a company's done research that's going to really have a massive impact, it's a big win with the judges if they're going to share that best practice and allow others to use it. I know it's difficult for competitors, but yeah, we haven't got long to save the planet, or should I say our existence on it. So yeah, making it open source for people to share and learn and act as well is a big win for our judges. Just going to quickly answer Miranda's question. Yes, you can. If you've won bronze, you can go for gold again, and you can apply in the same category next year. But you just need to make sure that you prove that you've improved your campaign significantly since the previous year. So don't just put the same entry in. Okay, so I'm going to go on to a session that highlights some of the really critical do's and don'ts around award writing, and often a controversial one.
Rick? Can I just add one thing onto that last question there? I think the other thing that's super valuable for anyone that's already entered the Global Good Awards is that you get the judges' feedback afterwards.
Yes.
So we, when we give the scores, we write a little comment against each of the criteria and an overall comment on the entry as well. And I do think that's incredibly valuable. I hope it's incredibly valuable for the entrants. I spend some time thinking about that before I write each comment, and hopefully try and write it in a way that's going to be helpful for the entrants. So, and I think all the other judges do as well. So use that information, both if you're re-entering in terms of the award itself, but also just it's there hopefully to help you, sort of mini free consultancy advice from the judges as well, on the on your business, on your product, on your campaign. So I really hope that's valuable. I don't know if Karen ever gets
I do
feedback.
I do get people saying that it's been really valuable and they've taken it away and implemented it. So yeah, it's really good. I like to use the little mini free consultancy session. So yeah, right. So coming back to this, an often a controversial thing about award writing, and that is who should and shouldn't write your application. And I'm going to start with a story about a previous award winner, Delphis Eco. I have full permission to discuss and share the information with you. In 2020, Mark, the director of Delphis Eco, entered 4 categories. He co-wrote them, and from those they won a gold, 2 silvers and a 1 to watch, because he was instrumental in writing part of it. This year, they entered 2 categories, and when the scores came out, I was pretty shocked that they'd not been shortlisted for either category, and the scores were really low across both categories, and they were separate judges for each one. One being supply chain, which, given Delphis Eco background and Mark's 10 years of blood, sweat and tears of getting his supply chain in a really, really good shape, I rang Mark and asked him who wrote the application form, because it was clearly not the same quality of application form that had been done before. And to be clear, they were out already. We weren't giving them another chance to put their application form in again. They'd not been shortlisted, so there was no bias in having this conversation with them. He said it was their comms agency, and that he'd had very little to do with it. Now, this isn't me saying you shouldn't be using a comms agency to write your entry. Far from it. I know there are several of you on this call, but there's definitely some considerations and guidance to follow if you do. One category, as I said, was sustainable supply chain, and I know full well one of Delphis Eco's strong areas, yet the application was only focused on one particular item: the launch of a supply chain charter that had just launched a few months before and had no recorded impact yet. So there was no other content about what Delphis Eco do in their own supply chain, which I know is a decade journey. The agency had helped them launch and communicate this charter, so they had transfixed on it, and the rest, more important side of their supply chain journey was lost. And with 40% of the scores awarded for impact in action, there was not a single statistic in the application at all. They mentioned that they'd supplied a toolkit to the suppliers, but didn't include it in the application form. Mark, I spoke to Mark, and he said it was his error to have hired a new agency and let them get on with it without any guidance. Now, Paula and Rick, there's obviously going to come back over to you first. Paula, what should and shouldn't you do if a comms agency writes your entry? Paula. Oh, you're on mute.
Always one. You should definitely give them a clear brief about what should be included in the entry, and supply them with enough background information and other documents to get them up to speed on this. And you should absolutely check over what they've written. I think sort of Mark has held his hands up that he dropped the baton on this one, but and especially if they're new, they haven't got the organizational memory, the company memory of of what's gone before. And if they have just been brought in to do a particular aspect, of course they know it best, so they're going to work on that. So they need a good briefing and then careful management. However busy you are, it's just a waste of time and money if you're not going to put that effort in as the business owner or the significant person involved in the project. So
yeah, Rick.
Yeah, just add that, I mean, get input from the team on the ground as well that's been involved, whether that's if it's a campaign or if it's a project or products, you know, the manufacturing side, or whoever's got direct knowledge of that within the organisation. If it's a company entry, then obviously the senior management team, you know, get their input into the entry as well. I think sort of try and avoid the comms agency writing it in a sort of PR marketing type approach. You know, the entry itself needs to be factual. It needs to be easy for the judges to understand. We want to feel the passion a little bit as well, and you know, the heart of the company and who you are as well. You know, if it's just written in marketing speak, so to speak, it might come across as greenwashing. You know, even though it isn't, it just might be the feel of it and the narrative that's used, because that's just you know, generally what perhaps comms agency are more used to writing in that style. If you don't have time to provide the answers to the impact related questions, the evidence related questions, then perhaps consider not putting an entry in. Often, as Karen stated, you know, it's sort of quite a large weighting, and we've talked a bit about impact and evidence already on this call. So if you don't have any, then don't try and bluff it, and don't just get marketing guys to bluff it, because yeah, as we stated, we'll see through that. We're looking for it. So if we can't see the evidence, then we won't give you a high score if we can't see it. And don't rush it as well. Sort of I think Mark, in this case, in that example that Karen went through, Mark was obviously super busy with day-to-day business, didn't have time to review it, and so just sort of got it done, click submit. But again, it's, as we said before around reading the guidance notes and the support that's out there. If you don't invest the time in this, then you're unlikely to get the reward at the end, unfortunately. So whilst I think it's also why it's important to pick the right awards to enter as well in the first place. So don't just enter every award that you see around sustainability. You know, read about them, read about the background, read about how the awards are run, read about how the ceremonies run, and if it aligns with your values as an organisation, then go with that one. And not necessarily saying the Global Good Awards will align with yours, but so pick the one that does. But or the couple that do. Don't, you know, if you enter 10 different award entries, then you will get fatigued with it, and you will just end up rushing a lot of them. So
yeah, and there's one thing that if you hear yourself saying that'll do, don't press submit. Simple as that. If you're having to say, oh god, that'll do, just don't hit it. And you're doing us out of money by doing that, but I don't want you to put your entry in if it's not going to be what you want to put in, and if you're rushing it. So who else shouldn't write your entry, Rick?
You know, really junior team members, or someone that's just joined the company. So sometimes it's, again, you think, oh, I'll give that person something to do. This is a great way they can learn about the organisation, which is true. So you could get them involved in terms of research and gathering information, but perhaps don't get them to articulate the answers completely, and certainly not without a lot of support from someone else in the organisation that knows it better, and can provide that firm backstory, context, and indeed know where the evidence might be collated. Because again, otherwise I think it will potentially be full of holes and easy for the judges to pick apart. So we do see that as well, and that kind of point coming across that yeah, someone extremely junior or completely new to the organisation has written the award, and a bit like the comms agency in this case, they only pick up on the latest thing or the last thing that's been done by the organisation, because that's what people are talking about at the stage, and don't have the rest of the history and context to add into the entry.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Right, one final question. I can probably answer this. What about startup that is a product in development? Do you have to wait till the product is launched, tried and tested ahead of applying for innovation? So there's two categories that you can apply for. That if your product is not currently in production, as long as you've got the data to show that it's a needed product. Don't just guess that statistic. You really have to have done your research and product and R&D beforehand, and that is the game-changing innovation and best product. So ideally innovation. So yeah, that is a possibility, but just make sure you've done research.
Sorry, Karen. There's also a startup category for the companies that have only been around for, I think it's 12 or 24 months. Is that right?
Yeah, that's related to the whole business though, rather than an sort of individual product or tech or anything like that. Okay, so right. So hopefully these have been useful. Of course, this session isn't just if you want to enter the Global Good Awards. This applies to pretty much most awards across a multitude of sectors. So I hope it's been useful. But there are awards out there that you shouldn't enter. I've actually written a blog on it, and it's called Vanity Awards. It's on the website. I'll follow up with it in my email to you all. And it sort of starts with, how many awards have you had an email that says, congratulations, you've been shortlisted for, and you haven't actually entered it? Well, there are some out there, and then to take part, you have to spotlight your company, you have to buy a marketing package. That's your big red flag. If you're having to pay extra money on top to promote your company, it's often that you are buying your win. And another one, I'm afraid to say, and there are some in the sustainability space too, is that you have to purchase the awards logo to be able to use it. You don't do that with us. You shouldn't have to do it with any awards, really, I don't think. If you've won an award, you should be able to use their logo and promote them as well as yourselves. So just to finalise, the outline for 2023 has come out. If you're on our registered interest list, you would have received an email from me this week. It's far more focused on purpose, far more inclusive, and engages all entrants. Unlike the traditional award ceremonies, where they are all for finalists who finalists attend, incidentally might not have won anything, have to sit through an hour of award categories. This day will be a whole day event, and showcasing what good looks like, threaded through the entire day, showcasing our winners, interviews, purpose-led educational sessions, and lots more. So have a visit the website. Please do complete the survey on the page. Again, I'll send it to you later. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks Paula and Rick for joining, and thanks everyone. Our judges are looking forward to reading your amazing entries in 2023. Entries open the 1st of February. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.